Well, welcome everybody. We are back at Copsha Home down in South Bend, Indiana. And we're kind of shooting it from this distance because we have a whole
I
gang
just got in.
behind me from the History Museum.
I hear
a lot of the
something
folks that you've heard about and you've heard their
right now.
names
Let me check
mentioned.
on this.
And you may even have had a chance to
guys.
get
No, I know you're
get to know them a
curious,
little
but
bit by
we're
going to
not
their
releasing
website. They've got
this
some real fun
until
profiles up,
Sunday.
some fun
This is going to be
pictures,
released on Sunday at 6 o'clock
characterizing who
Central
they are,
Time.
kind of their,
So we can't be running it on a live feed right now for people to see it
just
beforehand,
the way
okay?
they roll, in a
Yeah,
sense.
yep. I know we're down
So
at
I'm gonna start the
Copsha
class
Home, and it's
officially.
really cool. It's super cool, but I got to stop this, okay?
And,
Class is in session down there, and it's in session here too. So, fellas, we can't. I get it. I really get it. But you got to wait until Sunday, like everyone else. Sunday at 6 o'clock Central Time, you're going to see this fabulous premiere down at Copsha Home in South Bend, Indiana. Meet all of our friends from the History Museum. You're going to see the drawing that took place and identifies who the winner is of the big contest for one of my unicorn machines. And you're also going to have a chance to, guess what? Yeah, hear me speak and stuff and all that kind of fun stuff. But beyond that, we're also going to be able to celebrate our Heroes for History. Okay, guys, so be patient. Sunday is just around the corner. Let me get some lights on. And again, guys, just we'll do this on Sunday at 6 o'clock Central, 7 o'clock Eastern for our friends that are in the Indiana region and all of the eastern seaboard, blah, blah, blah stuff, okay? So be patient. It's going to come real soon. Yeah. Yes, Mr. Bean. Yes. Yes, you can sit center roll. Yes, Captain Smith, you can have shotgun, whatever that means. Okay. So let's come over here right now, and I'm going to give you guys a rare preview of our Heroes for History, okay? Before we jump into this unboxing for David Stock from the great state of Texas. Shipped a machine here, and we're going to be unboxing it, and you'll have a chance to try to figure out what that particular model might in fact be. Oh, interesting. All right, my steampunk hat is on top. Okay. You put it out there, Mr. Bean? Okay. Oh, because we're going to put on some fun music after we kind of reintroduce our Heroes for History again, and I might want to wear my hat. That was really thoughtful of you. Very, very cool. Mr. Bean, you might become an assistant afterwards. You never know. So, yeah, very nice hat. And I'm just going to go ahead and put it on to get us kind of in the mood of things. So, oh, very funny, guys. Very funny. Ha, ha, ha. You left all of our entries in the hat from which I picked the winner down in South Bend, Indiana. So, yeah, let me get them off of my head and anywhere else they're sticking to right now. Because we do have a winner now, but I'm not going to announce to you yet. And Mr. Bean, you can help pick up all of these entries. Some of them are even stuck to my feet. And you guys want to see, all of you watching right now, I still have all of these entries in the hat. And thank you again to Shelby that printed all of them. But Mr. Bean's little joke of putting them in the hat and then saying, hey, put your hat on, Scott, put your hat on. Look at all these all over the floor, too. Look at that. They're even all the way over there. But you know what? That is a good thing. Because each one of those entries represents a hero for history that donated. Some of whom donated well above the threshold of 100, and so they got additional entries for every amount of $50 above that entry level. So yeah, Shelby printed them and she said, we've got a ton of them. I hope your steampunk hat is big enough to hold them all. And I said, yep, it's going to be big enough. There we go. That was my alarm reminding me about this premiere to do an unboxing for, again, David Stock from Texas. So I'm going to see if we can't, I'll tell you what, let's go into this first, and then I'm going to get Mr. Bean to help me pick up all of these entries, because I don't want to be walking on them. It shows disrespect to our heroes, even though the winner's already been picked, and you'll find out who that is on Sunday at 6 p.m. Central Time during the premiere where we are down in Kapsahome. But in the meantime, I'm going to pick them all up with Mr. Bean's help, and we'll get them safely back into another container other than my steampunk hat in case I want to wear it. So let's first of all focus on our heroes that are on these boards. And you're going to notice something different about these boards right away. The different part about these boards is that each of these heroes that is on these boards now has a very special sticker from the History Museum, like this right here. I'll show it to you close up. Like this one. And remember, I introduced in one of those premieres, I showed you that I had printed some out, and then Shelby reached out and she said, they look really good, but the colors are off a little bit, particularly on Kapsahome, which is supposed to kind of be a burnt orange color. And I said, no, I've got a business background. I totally get it. My printer wouldn't print them, so I had them printed somewhere else. I sent them by email, kind of a screenshot, and the colors are off. So I totally get the branding thing, and we want to get the branding right. So Shelby said, I got you covered. I got your 6. I'm going to make sure that I've got a stack of these stickers that we use in the museum sometimes for very special occasions. And between Brian and Christy, our deputy executive director, they'll have these in hand so that they can acknowledge our history, our heroes for history on those boards that you're going to bring down to South Bend, Indiana. So I said, cool, totally cool. And you're going to see all that in the premiere that the boys were beginning to watch already. See, there I am right there in front of my friends down in the History Museum, or not in the History Museum, in Kapsahome, I should say, and we're getting ready to start the activities and the festivities. Well, you'll see all that on Sunday, again at 6 p.m. Central Time, 7 Eastern. So make sure you get that time frame right. If you're on the East Coast, you're going to want to tune in at 7 o'clock. If you're in the Central Time Zone, you're going to want to tune in at 6 o'clock on Sunday. Okay? Yes, yes, yes. Very cool. All right. First of all, I'm going to put on a totally different tune that I just discovered, which is really, really neat. Really, really cool. And then I'm going to go through our list one more time to acknowledge our heroes for history. I don't think we can do it too many times. And some of you that did not participate, did not donate, might be saying, okay, enough is enough. How many more times are we going to read the names off? Well, if I hear you saying that, I'm going to read them off at least one more time beyond that, because these heroes deserve recognition. And that's why they now have these very special stickers that Shelby was able to get through channels. I think Brian had to sign off, and maybe one of the, I don't know, maybe one of the board of directors had to sign off for us to use these stickers for something like this. But when they realized what they were for, they said right away, yep, you got the stickers, Scott. Brian and Christy, the deputy executive director, are going to have them in hand, and we're going to use them to acknowledge these heroes for history, because this is a big deal for the museum. This is a big deal, and we want to do it right. So let me put this tune on, and then I'm going to get Mr. Bean, while this tune is kind of warming up a little bit, to help me pick up all these names that are all over the floor right now. All these heroes for history. Hold on a second. All right, this one is called Ludwig, which is obviously like a really, kind of has a German flavor, doesn't it? Ludwig von Dubstep. Ludwig Ludwig von Dubstep. And y'all know what, any of you that are like into dancing and arts and all that, you know what dubstep is. So you already know what this is going to sound like. So get ready for it. And then off camera, I'm going to be on my hands and knees with Mr. Bean, picking up all those names that are all over the floor right now, because he is a funny guy. Yes, he is. All right, play the music, please. Please, please. Wow. That was a delay. Yeah. Come on, Mr. Bean. Come on, Mr. Bean, they're waiting. We gotta do it faster. Come on. It's not in your job description. Ha ha! It is now. Ha 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 ha! Come on, pick them up, buddy. No, I'm not mad. I thought it was a funny joke, but we're getting ready for this unboxing for David, and now everybody's waiting. Well, that's true. They can listen to this cool song. And yes, I know you'd rather be dancing right now than picking up the floor, but hey, you had a hand in this, my friend. You had a hand in it. Literally. Come on, the music is picking up faster. Let's go faster. Perfect timing. Perfect timing. Whew, we just got it done. So there you can see Mr. Bean in the midst of all of these entries. Again, these entries to me signify the miracle of what this fundraiser was amid a pandemic. Sorry, Mr. Bean. Amid economic uncertainty. Here, I'll hold you kind of on the edge. Amid economic uncertainty, amid just widespread joblessness, and some of this has hit some of our generous heroes for history as well, and yet none of this held back that incredible army from achieving this incredible milestone of $11,100 to help out our friends at the South Bend History Museum. I don't have any more of those stuck in my hair, do I? Did we get them all, Mr. Bean? Yeah, I think we did. So let me set this to the side. No, I'm not going to leave you in the hat, Mr. Bean. I'll put you back over by your friends. And yes, I think it was funny. I thought it was totally funny. Absolutely. Okay. So I'm gonna pass on the steampunk hat right now because I don't have enough time to find another container for those without making our friends wait even longer. So let us now see if we can go through our Heroes for History again, who now have a special honor. I would call it like a special award, really, from our History Museum friends that wanted to really acknowledge what an incredible thing you all did. So let's pick out some more music. And this next one is called Big Screen. Big Screen. Like our heroes right now are on the big screen. And let's see if we can acknowledge them one more time. And I don't know how long this song runs, so hopefully I don't run out of time, because that would be bad. That would be bad. 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 Yes, I don't know where the goat is. I have no idea. I have no idea where that sound is coming from. But one thing you are going to find out at that very cool gathering down at Kopsche is, and it relates to trivia, is that this particular animal is very significant to the Scottish people. That's all I'm giving away. You ain't getting no more than that. My lips are sealed. Yes, they are. Yeah. Okay. So, let's jump into this. I'm going to turn on this other song called Big Screen, and hopefully I have enough time to get through all of the names, because we have a lot of heroes to acknowledge. And I'll see if I can turn this down a little bit too, so I don't have to yell too loud. Here we go. Keep saying here we go, and then there's like this long lag time where, okay, now they're not messing with me anymore. Good. It's almost a little bit too calm, isn't it? It's not really festivious, is it? All right, I like it, but But it is dramatic. It is dramatic. Okay, let's go with this. It's different. Different's okay. So first of all, I want to acknowledge Sonny from Pennsylvania, Paula Noel from Florida, Emma B from Florida, Emily and Veronica from Texas, Brian from Louisiana, Scott from Wisconsin, Doc Roger from New Mexico, Gloria Andrews, also known as Gigi from Georgia, Louie and Sandra from California, Roz from Michigan, Pamela Ann from Florida, Annette Stover from Texas, John Smith from Florida, Bill O'Rourke from Florida, Tom Olson from Wisconsin, Mary from formerly from Oregon, I almost got it wrong, formerly from Oregon, Craig Edwards from Pennsylvania, Paula Noel from Florida, and again, you're not losing your mind if you hear a name more than once, it's because they donated more than once. We also have Emma B from Florida, again, Roz from Michigan, Butterfly on My Walls from Carol Jean, Butterfly on My Walls, Carol Jean from Texas. Thankfully, in the premiere down in the Cop Show Home, I didn't mess that up. And back to Roz again, I forgot to mention specifically that she donated a second time as well in honor of her father, Ernest E. Roos, Jr. of Hobart, Indiana. And also, you'll see when we're down at Cop Show Home, we're going to do something very special to recognize her dad, which is kind of cool. Juliet Thomas from Texas, Mary again from Washington State. Again, Mary really stepped out a couple of times there to cover both Washington State and Oregon. Marion Singer from Colorado, Super B from Nevada, Thomas Jeffrey Hanks from California by way of Greece, and last but certainly not least, Lori Mitchell from Mississippi. So I like my original song a lot better because it ended when I ended. This one ended a lot earlier, but that's okay. That's okay. Different is okay. We're flexible, right? So these again these are the heroes for history that stepped out of the shadows, and they are the ones that made a difference so that we could claim an incredible achievement. And I'm going to go for it real quick because I want to be visual with you all and show this to you again. I want to be visual. Once I find it, be patient with me for a second here. I'll find it eventually. There it is. There it is. Probably drop everything else, but that's okay. So, the heroes that you're looking at on these boards right now, this small army of dedicated individuals were able to, in a period of, let's say on the long end, 2 weeks, but really, realistically, it's closer to 10 days. They were able to, and forgive me, Craig and Emma and Emily and Veronica and all the other folks, but just temporarily, I'm going to put this up. So that those that are just starting to follow this and I've stepped into it and going, what's the big deal? What's with all these heroes? What did they do? What did they achieve? Well, what they achieved is really, quite honestly, the impossible. As I said before, during the course of a pandemic, economic uncertainty, huge joblessness, not only across America but around the world, they were able to rise up as an army and raise over $11,000, $11,100 to support the incredibly vital mission that the folks have down at the History Museum in South Bend, Indiana. They really are champions unto themselves because they are the keepers of the keys. They are the ones that champion the cause of preserving and protecting history, and that is a cause that is worthy of support. Even amid a pandemic, even amid all of the tough times that folks are facing right now, these incredible heroes in this small army, just on these two boards, folks, just on these two boards, these heroes rose up and they said, count us in. Count us in. We want to make a difference for our friends down at the History Museum. And you're going to see all this unfold in an amazing way, again, on Sunday, 6 p.m. Central Time, 7 p.m. Eastern Time. So you don't want to miss that premiere. I might make it available afterwards. I probably will, but no guarantees. I mean, if the servers at YouTube, God forbid, they crash, if you missed it, then you missed it. So I would definitely encourage you to be there. I know a lot of our friends from South Bend, Indiana are going to be there as well. So it's also a great opportunity for you to share remarks with them, even if they don't step out of the shadows. Maybe they're just monitoring it and watching it. Maybe they don't have a YouTube account and they can't jump into the live chat, but you can still type your remarks to them, or you could type questions to them, and they can certainly reach back out and provide those answers if you're wanting to, ask pointed questions to any of the members of that very elite team down at South Bend, Indiana. Okay? So I'm going to take this banner down so that I don't cover up our heroes anymore. Whoops, without knocking everything else down. So again, my thanks 1,000 times, times 1,000 times, times 1,000 times. Or why don't we just say my thanks 11,100 times, which again is what these heroes were able to accomplish in about 10 days. My thanks again to all of these heroes for what you were able to accomplish. I know that there were skeptics. I know that there were doubters that questioned, what can this little army really do? Well, you know what? You're going to find out another really cool story that I will share when we were in Kapshaholm down in South Bend, Indiana, about another small army and what they were able to accomplish as well. And I'm not going to let that cat out of the bag. You're going to have to watch that premiere and see that as well. So with that, thank you again, Heroes for History. Thank you, thank you, thank you for all that you did to make this campaign a success. So let me put on some more music while I get these boards moved to the side. Matter of fact, we can put on our funky little Ludwig von Dubstep again, because I think that's kind of a cool song, don't you? Yeah. Heroes for History, folks. Heroes for History. Oh, that's a big clue. Hello, Your Majesty. Yes, sir. I see that you're standing out there near that box that came from the great state of Texas from David Stock. So I'm guessing that one of your babies is inside of there. Yep. Yes, sir. Okay. We'll get to it. Oh, Mr. Bean, how did you get that brick up there? So I wanted to make another announcement as well while we kind of focus on this brick and this Rolls Royce and this certificate of authenticity at the feet of His Majesty the King. There goes that song ending again. Boy, that thing just, they should have made that song longer. But what I wanted to show you is I literally, when I got back from South Bend, late on Thursday, and I'm only going to show you this side because I don't want to show Paula's address, obviously, but this was waiting for me. Kind of come out to here. This was waiting for me, and this is none other than the really cool tags that Paula Noel prepared to go with these bricks that I'm going to be shipping out all over the country. And it was kind of funny when I met Brian down there. You know, we had exchanged emails and text messages and everything else together, but I'd never met him. And we greeted each other. We actually shook hands. And I hope I'm not getting him in trouble with the board of directors or anybody like that. We did sanitize our hands afterwards and all of that. So, but the big deal is towards the end, he said, well, Scott, I'm just curious because I had brought a brick down and I had it on the table with the board of our heroes for history. And he goes, how are you going to get these bricks out? I said, well, we've got a small post office, and I've already warned them that I'm going to be shipping bricks all over the place and kind of got their advice. And so I'm going to be going with a flat rate type container, probably similar to what Paula used to ship those labels just there to the right. And they're going to be going out to California. They're going to be going, those bricks are going to be going to New Mexico. Everywhere we have a hero. And again, some of those heroes are going to be getting more than one brick. They're going to be going out all over the country. So I don't know, we may end up setting some bells and whistles off, and I might get some letters from somebody saying, hey, what's up with all the bricks? And but at any rate, I'm really happy to be able to do that. Again, that's something that I'm going to do as part of my additional contribution to our cause in closing this out, to get all of those incredible historical bricks to all the corners of our country. And for some of those folks that bid on one of my Slant-O-Matic machines, I'll probably delay shipping the bricks to you and just put those bricks into the tote with your machine, you know, nicely padded, nicely cocooned, so that we can kind of kill one bird with one stone. And no offense to bird lovers, I love birds too, but it's a saying. So at any rate, we'll try to accomplish two things with one shipment for those of you that got one of those Slant-O-Matics. So that would include, looking over my shoulder, Emma B, Roz, boy, I've got a little bit of road leg from my long trip down to South Bend and back. Paula Noel, Craig Edwards. Did I miss anybody? I don't think so. I think we had those four heroes that not only made a cash donation by calling Shelby, but they above and beyond called Shelby back again to get one of those Slant-O-Matics. So again, Craig Edwards, Paula Noel, Emma B, and Roz, you're going to end up getting one of those Slant-O-Matics, and I will end up sending those bricks out with your machine when it starts heading towards you. And obviously each one of those heroes is going to get 2 bricks, because Craig and his fiance Sunny, all of you know Sunny, they both donated, so each of them gets a brick. So with that 404 Slant-O-Matic, there's going to be 2 bricks heading towards Pennsylvania. With Paula Noel, if I'm not mistaken, let me double check so I don't get it wrong. Hold on a second. Yes, I am correct. Paula Noel also donated twice. She gave a cash donation by calling up Shelby, and then she also got that Singer 401A. So Paula will also, when her machine is shipped out from the workshop eventually, there will be 2 bricks heading towards the great state of Florida to her as well. Same thing with Emma B. Good gravy. I thought I silenced that. All right, I silenced it now. So, yeah, also with Emma B down in Florida, Emma B will also be getting 2, because not only did she make a cash donation by calling up Shelby, but she also called Shelby again, like these other heroes that got these machines, and she called back and said, I want that 503A. So Emma will also, along with her machine, be getting 2 bricks like these other heroes that I just mentioned. And then finally, last but certainly not least, Roz as well, from the great state of Michigan, the same state that Shelby is from. Woo-hoo! So Roz is also going to be getting 2 bricks, because Roz made a cash donation by calling Shelby up, then called Shelby back again and said, if that 403A is not taken yet, I want to get it, and I want to get it in memory of my dad, Ernest E. Roos, Jr., who was from Hobart, Indiana. So, you know, all of the folks that I just showed on those 2 boards gave sacrificially. All of those heroes are heroes. Some folks even went, I mean, they jumped on that grenade like a soldier would do to save his comrades and to demonstrate courage. Some of these folks stepped out actually twice which is really super cool. Super, super cool. And that's one of the things that Shelby said, and Brian as well. They said, we were just blown away by people from all over the country stepping up to support our mission, but some of these folks called twice. So, again, you can't say thanks enough for heroes like all of those folks up on the board. All of those folks. All right, let me knock nothing else down, hopefully. So that's why I still had that that brick out, or I should say Mr. Bean set the brick up, so that I could highlight the fact that I just got this priority box from Paula Noel that contains all of those cool tags. And I'm not going to try to open this box right now. I'll post things on Facebook showing the brick with a certificate of authenticity and one of Donna's super cool tags. Again, if you don't follow things closely enough, or you've just been distracted or whatever, she made these all by hand. Plus, she used a vintage typewriter to type the information on the tags. So it just has that flavor, that depth of vintage because of that. So thanks again, Paula Noel from Florida, for being so generous in sharing your talent to make this brick giveaway even more special. Very cool. Very, very cool. All right. I'm trying to remember. I did ring the bell, Your Majesty, right? I did? Okay. Thank you, sir. Thank you. Thought I had. Yeah. When I came in and the boys were watching the footage of the premiere early, before it's going to be released live on Sunday, I rang the bell because on the screen I just rung the bell to open the class there in Kapschaholm. Yeah, I'm just, again, folks, I had a real long trip. I'm just getting over road legs, so if I seem a little bit, there you go. Okay, so let me move this. Your Majesty, sir, I'm going to move you right over here so you're safe. After all, we have to protect the king, right? So this box right here, that again came from Texas, Fort Worth, Texas, from my friend David Stock, is, I would say with almost absolute certainty, because His Majesty is out there. I would say that we can pretty much count that this is going to be a Swedish beauty. The question is, which one? Because there are so many Swedish beauties, all of those Colormatic machines that were made in the 6000 series and such, the green machines, and all kinds of other machines in between and before those machines as well. So we're going to have to see if we can figure it out. And once you feel like you have a solid guess, as we always do in the classroom, go ahead and just jump in. Don't raise your hand. Jump into the live chat and type in your guess as to what you think it is. And you may or may not be able to see it, but this box actually arrived back in November of last year, right near the end of the month, November 27th. So kind of like the recent unboxings for Roz, things have been real busy in between traveling down to Florida, getting all the things ramped up for our fundraiser for South Bend, and all kinds of other things in between. And I also do house calls as well. Sometimes I'm away from the workshop, out visiting elderly folks and helping them with their machines. Very much like my good friend Alex Ashcroft does over in the United Kingdom. You wouldn't think it. I mean, this guy's written a ton of books, and I have a great deal of respect for him and what he's contributed to our space. But he, even as busy as he is with all the things that he's involved with, he does house calls as well. So at least there's two of us left in the world that still do house calls. And I know we have a number of folks that follow this channel that either they are doctors or they have doctors in their family. And I think a house call is pretty doggone rare these days. So kudos to Alex over there in the United Kingdom, and to any others that I'm not aware of that are still doing house calls, especially to help out folks that are elderly or possibly disabled or infirmed in some way and not able to leave their home. And we can step into their home and offer that service of getting their vintage machine running top notch, and that way they're taken care of. You know what I mean? That's the way it should be. Let's take care of each other, right? So this again is a box that came from David down in Texas. I'm going to see if I can pick out some more music. The word I typed in this time is called, oh, road leg. I typed in the word classical. I was just curious what I would get. So all of these songs somehow have anchors or attachments to the word classical, either in the title or some other way that YouTube ends up coding them. So this next one I'm going to play is called The Beacon. The Beacon. And again, I don't know why all of a sudden we have this lag time, but we do. So it's going to come out eventually. Maybe it's a YouTube thing. Yeah, maybe. All right, so let's begin this unboxing. Ooh, this is like a 007 song almost, isn't it? Can't you see like a spy thing going on or something? I can. If you can see a spy thing going on with this song, type in the chat like little eyes or spy or something fun like that, would you? Please? So just a tip again, as you are opening a box, something that's shipped to you or otherwise, if you're going to use an X-Acto knife like this, really make sure you set that blade appropriately so you're not cutting too deep. And you can kind of determine that by pressing down and seeing how much give you get to see how much empty space underneath that lid there might be. So I'm going to set mine at this height, which will be deep enough to cut through the box without cutting the contents. Excuse me, Your Majesty, I gotta move you again. So David must have thought about my peanut allergy, which I don't really have, but it's kind of fun to joke like I do have a peanut allergy for packing peanuts. So he used these bubble cushions. Now the only thing I'll say is that a lot of these bubbles right now feel like they've flattened. So maybe this got some impact on the top, and thankfully these took the hit instead of the machine that's inside of here. So and there's nothing wrong with these at all. I would just say that it feels like they're probably a single chamber. And again, just avoid bubbles on sheets like this. Avoid bubbles on sheets like this that are single chamber, because if one of the bubbles pops, if it pops all the way through, then you can lose the entire integrity of that entire sheet with just popping one bubble. It's kind of like, do you remember either as an adult or as a kid, do you remember Christmas lights? And how the Christmas lights were set up where if one bulb went out and you never knew which bulb it was, if one bulb went out, that entire string of lights wouldn't light? If that ever happened to you, type it in the chat, please. Type it in the chat so that I know I'm not alone. Because I remember that as a kid, I would be goofing around or I'd mess around with something or whatever it was, and then all of a sudden one of the string of lights would go out. And of course, it's like one of the string of lights that's like all the way underneath all the other strings of lights. And I would get in trouble with my mom and dad for that. And sometimes it probably wasn't my fault, but, kids get blamed for stuff sometimes that they really don't do. It happens. But if that's ever happened to you, or if you can relate to that, then type it in the chat. Because with stuff like this, you just got to be mindful that you've got to make it as bulletproof as possible so that if one section of this somehow gets compromised, you're not going to lose the protection of the entire sheet. So, You know, just be aware of that. Be cautious about that when you pick your packing materials. So I can see a couple of things already. I can see, looks like it's a Ziploc bag, obviously, and it has a busted belt in it. It's got some springs. It's got some attachments, quite a few attachments. And it has a note, notice to customer. Your sewing machine has been well oiled. Please sew on a scrap of material first to prevent oil spotting on garments. Schmetz ballpoint or stretch needles in knit or stretch. If machine has severe thread looping on bottom, check machine threading. Okay. I don't know why this is in here, but maybe there's a note on the other side that I'll have to look at. I bet you maybe that's it. There isn't. It's just in there. So I'll have to ask David, what's the story? What's the story on this note? So, yeah. The mystery note. The mystery note. All right. Well, we'll figure it out. But again, you know, like anything that you put into the box that's going to be shipped, this came from Texas. So, however far it is from Texas to Wisconsin, several hundred miles, obviously, maybe 600-700 miles. Go ahead and bubble wrap stuff like this too, because it's getting banged around and jostled as it's being shipped, you know, and moved. You know, moved from buildings to metal bed trucks and everything else, and dropped and tossed. So I would just say, you know, go ahead and stretch wrap it down so you can kind of immobilize it. Does that sound different? As opposed to, and then go ahead and just bubble wrap it. Put a little sheet of bubble wrap around it and safeguard it. Because sewing attachments have a great deal of value, and just that little bit of extra precaution could keep them from becoming damaged. Oh, I see what it is. I also have a plug as well, a plug-in point. So, yeah. The mystery continues. We have no idea. I have no idea. All right, so let me pick another tune. So that was called The Beacon, and the next one is called Allegro. Allegro, which I think we've heard this before. I'm pretty sure we have. Allegro. Yeah. And eventually it'll load. See that? I badmouthed it and then all of a sudden it loaded right away. That's pretty funny. Oh, there's a big clue. I'll set that to the side for a second. So David really wanted to, make this as bulletproof as possible. So he literally used some sort of a plexiglass. And this stuff, if you don't know it, it is super tough stuff. And he used this as a guard around the case on the inside of this box. So if something hits it from the outside, good luck. Good luck. This stuff, again, is super tough stuff. So very good choice, David. Very, very smart. Very smart. See if I can get this out of here now. All right, there's another sheet. Another sheet. And the only thing I'll notice is that he had it on this side of the case, on this side, and on this side, but he did not have one of these on the front, which is where the handle is. And handles, depending on what they're made out of, this handle looks like it might be some sort of a plastic material, so remember to protect handles as well. You'll see cases that have busted handles, and it's usually because the case has been banged or dropped or something like that, and they can be a real pain to sometimes replace that handle. So just take a little bit of extra precaution and protect all edges that are going to be exposed to the outside of that box where it can get slammed or hit or dropped or something like that. And again, the whole purpose of this feedback is not to criticize David. He's done a brilliant job. but it's to give feedback to others so that they can take the good things that David did and make them even better, improve on them. Again, we're committed in the classroom to a principle that I learned when I was working with PepsiCo and with General Motors many, many years ago as an executive. Yep, I know it's hard to believe I was an executive, but I really was. And we learned a principle called the CANI principle, C-A-N-I, constant and never-ending improvement. Type that in the chat right now, and if you're the first one to type CANI, spell it out like that, C-A-N-I, and then like a dash or something like that, and then type in what it means, constant and never-ending improvement, CANI. If you're the first one to do it, you get an A in the class today. All right. So that was Allegro, which was really kind of a somber, cool, calm song, which is okay. Now we're going to type in, boy am I, road leg. Now I'm going to type wander, the word wander, and that's going to be the song, because I'm just wandering everywhere today. Wander. Before it goes off, I just realized my compressed air thing was on, so that was just destined to go off, kind of like my phone. Galloping gumdrops, Batman. Okay, so let's get this case out of this box. And I can already see that David did a brilliant job of padding the bottom as well, since he has the case turned sideways in this box. He's got a thick layer of that same type of bubble, that those sheets of bubble stuff underneath here as well. Oh, plus he has another one of those heavy sheets of plexiglass type stuff. So good luck if anything tries to punch through the bottom of there. It's not going to happen. That stuff is, you could probably shoot that with a 38 or something like that, and it barely might go through, but I'll tell you, it would be tough for it to get through that stuff. Okay, so let me set this to the side. And we will get this case back up here. Actually knocked all my pictures down. Sorry about that. I knocked John Lennon down. And if any of you are very, very brand new to vintage sewing machines and sewing and stuff, yes, John Lennon was actually, there was a picture taken of him. Matter of fact, I'll show it to you. There's a picture taken of him behind a Pfaff sewing machine. There he is. Kind of cool, huh? A lot of celebrities like sewing machines. A lot of celebrities do. So this looks like it's a real nice case. Again, because we're committed to always improving, constant and never-ending improvement, CANI, right? Because we're committed to that, the only feedback that I'll give on this is, you'll notice if you look really, really close. Matter of fact, I'll come off the tripod so we can look at it super close, because I really want you to see this, and it just illustrates an opportunity for taking David's packing process, which is quite good, but we can make it better. Because I talk about always anchoring down the hinges on cases, right? When you ship something like this, you're always going to go around the entire case with stretch wrap, so that you can take the stress off of the hinges and the locking mechanisms on these cases. Otherwise, you know, it's pulling, it's pushing, it's shaking. There's a lot of stress against these rivet points and against this entire assembly, and we don't want it to get damaged in transit. So this side of the case seems to have survived pretty well. There's a little bit of displacement there, just barely. A little bit of displacement. The hinge and everything looks like it's aligned and true. And I can only imagine it still works, and it does. Look at on this side though. Number one, we actually have some of this material that has separated. And again, it may have been like that, but this can also happen because what I'll do with a case like this when I ship it back to David down in Texas is I will stretch wrap, obviously the hinges first on both sides to take the stress off of those mechanisms, and then I'll stretch wrap the entire case so it's totally cocooned, and then I'll go around that entire case with bubble wrap. Well, you guys know what I do. You guys know what I do. But when you don't take the stress off, and when you don't make it a single unit by stretch wrapping the entire case and almost kind of compressing it. Remember those programs back on the TV where they were always advertising the vacuum process to extend the life of food? Do you remember those programs? If you do, type in the chat, yeah, I remember those programs, or yeah, I even bought those things. They would use like a vacuum process. They would suck all the air out of the package and basically compress it. And then it was supposed to, with no oxygen in the bag, or little or no oxygen in the bag, it was supposed to extend the life of the food. And then you would freeze it and you could eat it like 50 years later or whatever. I have no idea. Never bought the stuff. But the whole idea of compressing something is then it doesn't have the freedom of movement to be flexing and stretching and stressing all over the place, is that case is getting jostled coming all the way from the great state of Texas. So because this wasn't anchored on this side got by. Again, the vintage sewing machine fairies were holding this side together, but they were not as successful in holding this together. If you look at it real close, you'll see that that hinge now is actually bent. It's actually not lined up true like the other one. If you can see it more so from the side. It's actually bent. And you can see the clear displacement difference here. See that displacement right there where the case has gotten jostled and banged and it's gotten separated and stressed? Over here it didn't happen. There were only a couple of vintage sewing machine fairies working, and they were guarding the left side. They couldn't guard both sides, so the right side took the impact. And you can see what that looks like. The case gets deformed. You can see a lot of separation right here. Pretty much put my finger all the way through there. See that? Compared to this side, it's not quite as pronounced. So again, when you're shipping a case like this, take the few extra minutes to anchor down the hinges so you can take the stress off of them as that machine is getting jostled and everything, and then cocoon the entire machine in stretch wrap. And that way you'll guard against stuff like this from happening as well. And yes, I can repair this. I can talk to David about that if he wants it repaired, or he might elect to repair it himself. But I would be happy to help with that. So just keep that in mind. Again, I think David did a very good job, but we can always improve our process. I'm committed to that. So we don't have stuff like this happen. And just hope that the vintage sewing machine fairies can keep the other side safe. We can do our part too, right? We heard that recently on one of the premieres. Some guy from California by way of Greece said something about doing our part. Yeah, I think he did. So when you open cases like this, just be aware that the shorter end of the case joining points, this side right here, is going to be the front. This is the back, so you wouldn't want it spun the other way, otherwise we'd be opening, obviously, the wrong way, and then that would be embarrassing, wouldn't it? But again, this is a resin type handle, so also protect this as well, as you see me doing the different packing videos. Alright, so I'm going to pop hinge number 1. Hopefully hinge number 2 will pop as well. Oh, this is the one that got damaged. I was spun around. This is one separation bent hinge. See, I tried to release it and now it won't release. This side that wasn't damaged, that the vintage sewing machine fairies protected. So again, this is preventable, and we can all learn from David's experience to safeguard things so that we don't have the same thing happen to our hinges. There, we got it to release now. So now we're kind of opening it up. Going to peek inside. Kind of see what we see. I'll move that to the side for a second so that we Don't have to look at the front of that and try to guess what we might have. And you can see David has done something that I've seen happen before, and this is another. Again, this is a classroom. It's not a room to be cruel or critique or be overly negative to anyone. But I've seen this done before, where someone isn't familiar, and this may not be David. Maybe he bought this from someone and he just shipped it here straight away. I have no idea. But I can already see from this right here that this is the bottom of the machine, and it was put in this case upside down. Because in a case like this, the bottom of the machine should be facing down, so that as you're carrying it like this with the handle, the weight of the machine is not pressing down against the thread guides and everything else on top of the machine. Because right now, if you imagine carrying this, you're carrying it with the machine upside down in the case. And it should be turned 180 degrees so that the bottom is down, as opposed to all of the weight right now resting there. And I realized David shipped this sideways, so in shipping it wasn't as big of a consequence, but y'all need to understand that this is in the case upside down. Okay, that's kind of what I want to say. So let's see, I might have to go back on the tripod so I can carefully remove this machine. It may have already suffered a little bit of damage, like the case did, but we're going to see if we can prevent any additional damage from occurring. So give me a second here. Let's change this shot. Let's come in a little bit more like that. Plug this camera back in, and we will continue the unboxing. I'm just going to pick out a little bit more music for us. So that was called Wander, and now we're going to do medieval astrology. I know that we played these before. They all sound familiar to me. Medieval astrology. Okay, so let's do this very carefully, because right now we have all the weight of that machine pressing down on top of the top of the machine right now, which should not be the case. So I'm going to grab the areas on the side, which is the bottom base of the machine. I'm going to kind of lift it up. You probably won't be able to see me doing it, but I'm going to lift it up and then carefully slide it out and then try to rotate it around so that we don't have any more issues with anything potentially getting damaged. You guys already know what this is, because we just covered this recently in another premiere for Roz's machine. This is not a toaster or a cappuccino maker or a coffee grinder. It is none other than an original Swedish Beauty foot controller. I call it kind of a speed style foot controller. And again, on the back of it, it's going to give us usually some indication of which model it's compatible with. Here I'd have to look it up and just confirm that an FR3 is compatible with this sewing machine. Because on these that were made by Electrolux, and I brought this up in a recent premiere, and I think it may have been Sunny that would say, of course Scott would know that. Or somebody had said that. But Electrolux did make foot controllers for Husqvarna Viking, and they made them for some of the other sewing machine makers as well. Most of my childhood, as I would hear this name, I would never think of a foot controller for a sewing machine. I would think of a vacuum cleaner. If any of you ever in your lifetime or knew someone in your lifetime that owned an Electrolux type vacuum cleaner, type it in the chat. Or if you knew of somebody or yourself, if you own something that was made by Electrolux, type in the chat what product that was. If it wasn't a vacuum cleaner or obviously a foot controller. And you can see the other thing we're going to have to do to help out David is these are supposed to be little rubber boots on the bottom to keep this foot controller when it's placed on the, on the floor or whatever from sliding. We're missing one right here. This is probably the best of them right here, and even this is kind of worn down. This is really, really worn down. And then here again we have one that's pretty much all but missing. So there have to be new rubber pads or some sort of a pad that's non-skid put on the bottom of here, so if David in his home down in Texas has a wood floor or some other, maybe a linoleum or something that's slippery, he's not going to have this thing sliding all over the place as he's trying to use it. So that's just another thing that I will be happy to do for him at no extra cost to help him out. And again, if you went to a local sewing center, you wouldn't get that. If you bring it in like this, when you get it back, it's going to look exactly the same way, because they just don't have time to do it. I've said this a million times. They will get your machine in and out of there. Even if you're gone for a couple hours, they're going to be done with that machine in about 30 to 45 minutes. Because they have a lot of overhead and they can't afford to spend more time than that on a machine like that. And they certainly don't have any time to goof around with a foot controller as long as it's working. Doesn't matter if it's sliding a little bit. That's the owner's problem. Well, when you bring it to the workshop or you ship it to the workshop like David did, it's my problem / my opportunity to make it right for the customer. That's the difference. That's a big difference. So I will set this to the side. Also, you'll notice that the cool thing about this foot controller, if you can see it in the shot, and I know that when we premiere machines like this for unboxings of that, it's in high definition, so you should be able to see it. But if you're colorblind, maybe not. But most of these Swedish Beauty type foot controllers, these speed style ones like this, are going to be jet black. This one is almost a chocolate brown. And I've seen these before, but they're a lot more rare. And that may have just been the choice of Electrolux when they made them. Instead of making them black like the other ones, they made them brown, chocolate brown. And it's possible, again, with Husqvarna being really particular, and I can only imagine the vetting process they went through before they finally shook hands with and chose Electrolux to make their foot controllers. They gave them a long list of requirements, and they may have said so that customers and others that get your foot controllers can immediately see, hey, there's a difference, it's not black, and then look at the back and go, oh, it's made by Electrolux, it's not directly made by Husqvarna in Sweden. Maybe that's why it's a different color. I have no idea. I'm just guessing. I'm just making an educated guess in the classroom. Yeah. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put on some more music. I'm going to carefully lift up David's machine. Going to move this case out of the way. And then we're going to finish the unboxing on this machine itself. And then we'll be able to finally get closer to a point where all of you might have a chance to jump into the live chat and type down the answer that you think describes what model this is within that Husqvarna Viking family. So the next one we're going to do is number 1A minor waltz. And I know we've done this one before. And I'm holding this with one arm, and if you think it's light, it's not. Swedish Beauties are built well. And you can see this side that got that damage, that side that took that big impact, actually the other side, I'm mistaken. Both sides, I'm totally mistaken. But we got damage to the bottom of the case as well. And that could have already been there. It's very possible that it was already there. but I'm just pointing it out. We have damage there, and we have damage along here as well. So all right, so we keep getting smaller and smaller and smaller as we remove these layers. So I'll just change my shot a little bit and come in just a little bit tighter, not super tight. So let's take a look at removing some more of these layers so we can get closer to guessing what model this is. And you can see here David did a decent job of trying to use that stretch wrap to anchor this bubble wrap down, but again, because we're committed to doing things better each and every time, I would go a lot more intense on that stretch wrap and really anchor this down well. Right now it's kind of loosey-goosey. And again, when you can make it a single unit and anchor it to the body of that machine, you're going to get a substantially better field of protection than the way it is right now. And I'm not looking at the chat, so if you're already typing in guesses as to what model it is, if David is in attendance at this premiere, then he can, if he's wanting to, he can go and field those questions. Some owners like to do that, some don't. When we just did the unboxing for Roz's Swedish Beauty, she elected to say, "No, Scott, you handle it if you would." I said, "Yes, ma'am, I'll do that." So I don't know what this is from. It's a little piece of broken polymer of some sort, kind of a brownish tint. I don't know what it's from at this point. But I found a couple of those in the box too. So we may have something else that's been damaged as it was shipped from Texas to the workshop in Wisconsin. So yeah, I'll show you again, kind of here. I think you'll be able to see it in the shot. I'll do my best. Kind of look right there in the middle. Right there. See all those little plastic pieces? And again, I'm looking at my little screen so I can kind of see what you're seeing, but when we present this live, it's going to be a lot clearer for you. So we've got a number of little pieces of plastic. I don't know what it's from at this point. I'm looking at the normal color schemes on a machine like this, and it doesn't match. So at this point, we'll just have to wait and see. But there's quite a few little fragment pieces on there, and I'll try to save those in case it is something that I can help David in repairing. Then I'll see if I can do that. See if I can do that. So I'm going to put these, I'm going to kind of dump these on the workbench just so we can have them and not lose them, hopefully. There we go. I made a little pile of those. So let me pick out another song, and I'm going to keep on doing this unboxing. The next one is called Familiar Things. Familiar Things. Familiar Things. And because we just did an unboxing for Roz's Swedish Beauty, this next one called Familiar Things might relate to our unboxing, because so we're looking at this shot right now. You can see a very similar appearance to some of the things we saw on Roz's as we were peeling those layers back, right? Yeah, there's some more plastic pieces on top of there. So we have something that broke. We're just gonna have to wait and see what it is. So piece of it. It's a larger piece. Kind of a burnt orange color, isn't it? At least to my eyes, it kind of looks burnt orange, almost salmon color. Whatever these little fragments of plastic are, that's the other side right there. We got more that have fallen out. These were kind of behind the machine where we pulled that plastic back. So again, if you're new to this channel, when you're cutting with scissors, just kind of pull that stretch wrap out to create a bigger buffer zone, and just very carefully with the blades angled away from the machine, go ahead and cut through those layers so you can get it to come off the machine without damaging potentially the patina or something like that as you're cutting through those layers. So. Well, there's the big reveal. We're about to pull this off, and then you'll see the complete machine revealed. So it will probably get you closer to typing in a guess if you haven't done so already. And this is obviously, you can see this is a different style branding than we would have just seen on Raz's. This is an older style branding. Just as beautiful, just different. So, and the paint patina is also going to be a little bit darker green than that mint style one that a lot of you are accustomed to seeing on this channel. Just kind of feeling the balance wheel and trying to figure out where all of our little plastic fragments are coming from. There's more of them. So eventually I'll figure it out, what these plastic fragments are from. In the meantime, a little bit of mystery. A little bit of mystery. And you're going to see that the thread guide that on many of these Swedish Beauties on this side of the machine is going to be a single unit that's going to attach with 2 screws into the body of the machine. On this particular model, which is a little bit older style, it's going to have 2 separate thread guides with no middle point. So you're going to thread from the rear across the body of the machine through the second thread guide, and then get the machine ready for sewing that way. It's also going to have a slightly different style upper tension than we're accustomed to seeing on some of the models. And I can see as well that David's right now has an incandescent bulb in it, so we'll certainly I'll certainly talk to him about upgrading that from this to one of my LED bulbs, because these do not put out nearly the light and they put out a lot of heat, and I know that it gets real hot in Texas in the summertime, and if David is using this machine either in the summertime or any other time it gets hot in Texas, he's going to much prefer to have an LED bulb, both for the light and also the lesser amount of heat. So I'm going to set this to the side for right now. Okay, so it may be a clue, it may not be. I just opened this faceplate. I'll just kind of rotate the machine a little bit towards you. And we have another chunk of that plastic inside of the faceplate. Let me come off the tripod again and kind of show you what I'm looking at. So it's hard to say at this point, but you can see right there we've got another chunk of that same type of plastic right there on the inside of the faceplate area. Where am I? Right there. So yeah, so I'm going to put it in our little pile over here with all of our other little fragments that have come out as we've been unboxing David's machine, and try to figure it out. And if any of you, again, I always say it, sometimes a teacher, always a student. So if any of you fellow teachers out there have any hunches or suspicions as to what you think this might be, why there was a chunk of it on the inside of David's faceplate, and we found a number of other pieces of it as we were taking the bubble wrap off of the body of the machine, by all means type it in the chat. Like I said, we're always switching roles between being a teacher and being a student, including myself. Oh, there's another piece. So I totally welcome that if you have any insights. Yeah, we'll add that to the pile as well. Yeah, that's just a fitting issue. That's nothing, well, I was going to say there's nothing broken, but that's so, see how loose that is right now? That should be up and anchored when it's in place, and it was wiggling a lot, and then it just came off because this bracket is too loose. So I'm going to set this piece to the side as well. We're going to have this thing taken apart by the time we get done with this unboxing. Makes it easier to see the inside, doesn't it? Yes, it does. Okay, well, let's look at the front of the machine first, and then we'll take a look around the machine a little bit more. So David is very smart for having this underneath the presser foot. Again, whenever you ship a machine, you want to make sure that that presser foot and those feed dogs are separated in some way. We don't want to have metal-to-metal contact between the feed dogs and the bottom of the presser foot attachment. We do not want to have that, because it's either going to scar the bottom of the presser foot attachment or it's going to dull the feed dogs. So David had this underneath there, which is spot on. Exactly what we want to be doing. The only thing he didn't do that we're committed to constantly improving our process, constant and never-ending improvement, right? Kanai? You want to, when you ship a machine, make sure that that needle is down into the material, like so, with that presser foot in the down position, just like that. That's how you want to ship a machine. And if you have somebody ship you a machine, when you unbox it, that's how it should look. And the whole idea behind that is you're going to be protecting that needle that's already in the machine. So when that individual sits down to it, they're not going to potentially have a bent needle and all of a sudden have all kinds of bad things happening, which could also include striking the throat plate and causing burring and problems with that, or striking the hook underneath that throat plate and then causing some major problems potentially to the hook system on the machine. So ship the machine just like you see it right now, or ship it with no needle at all, and that way the person gets it on the other end. They're going to automatically have to put a needle in it, and that needle will be fresh. This doesn't sound too good, does it? Listen. Yeah. So what I'm going to do, and I do this in part so I remember to change out the needle, but also more so to keep myself safe, I'm going to take this needle out right now and get rid of it. So just toss it in the garbage, and that way, along with the fact that we're probably going to fire this machine up, and like I said in the recent premiere with Roz's machine, when you're dealing with an unknown commodity like a machine like this that just arrived at the workshop, you want to reduce the possibility of damaging that machine when you fire it up. So by taking the needle out, we make sure that we're not going to scar that throat plate opening. And I can see there's some scarring on it already. I'm going to zoom in on that. See where that shininess is on there? That's where the needle's been hitting it. So we don't make it any worse than it already is. I take that needle out straight away. And then always, if you do that, just make sure you tighten this back down, because you don't want this piece to be flopping when you're potentially operating the machine. Does that make sense? I'm going to peek inside of here, see what we see. Oh, we see more pieces of that polymer salmon colored material right there. See it? You know what? Can I be perfectly honest with you? What I suspect that might be, now that I'm seeing more and more of it, more and more and more of it, I'll bet you that there is probably an orange belt that is running from this balance wheel down to the bobbin winding assembly, and it's degraded to a point where all those little pieces of the plastic from the belt are falling off, which means they're getting inside of the machine, which is not good, because it can get jammed in any of those mechanical areas as they're trying to rock and turn and do their thing, and can cause that machine to jam up or even damage the machine. So that might well be part of a belt that has degraded to the point where it's just basically falling apart. So let's go with that hunch that it might be that, and we'll see if when we open up the back of the machine, we'll see if we find an orange belt or a salmon colored belt like this. But that might well be what we're seeing right now with all of that stuff. The other thing you'll notice is that when we open this up, another thing that I do to safeguard the machine and to protect the customer's machine from getting damaged is I take out the bobbin case, and you'll notice right now the bobbin case is not inserted correctly. See that? That bobbin case should be snapped in, and right now it's just floating in there. It's not supposed to be like that. So first thing we'll do is we'll take the bobbin case out. See if we find any more of those little orange pieces. Check our hook a little bit. Again, and I said it in Roz's Premiere, and I've said it numerous times before, if you have a Swedish Beauty or you acquire one and you take that bobbin case out and you're just kind of checking things out, and you go to jiggle this just to see if it's anchored properly, and you get this effect of it moving from left to right and from top to bottom like that, it's not broken. That is an exclusive Husqvarna design feature called the Jam-Free Raceway. And the Jam-Free Raceway is a design feature they came up with so that if people are running heavier thread through either the top or the bottom, because all the thread eventually is going to work its way into this raceway area, that it's less likely to jam, because instead of that hook system being in a fixed position and rigid, it floats from left to right and up and down. And by floating, it allows that thread to pass through the raceway as that stitch is being created more easily, and it's less likely then to cause jamming. So the Swedish were very smart in coming up with a design feature like that, because it took a lot of the headache away from people that were sewing. And this is a classic bobbin on the inside of here. I've seen some folks that are selling these aftermarket, but they also made original ones black like this as well. Most of them, like I said on Roz's Premiere, are going to be silver, and they're either going to be aluminum or metal. Metal is preferred. So we'll have to check this one out and see whether it's metal or aluminum, right? And as Bill pointed out recently on one of the premieres, aluminum is a type of metal. I don't dispute that. But when it comes to the function of how aluminum operates in a sewing machine versus metal, they're almost like apples and oranges. Aluminum is a lot lighter weight. It's not going to spin as true as a metal one. And so while they both are types of metal, a metal or a steel bobbin is going to be a lot better for your machine. It's going to give you a lot better results. It's going to give you a lot less headaches. So we'll check this one right now. We'll kind of come down on it with this magnet and see if we get a positive response. And we did. So we do not have an aluminum bobbin here, and I didn't think we did because the original ones, you don't see these black ones as often. The original ones are going to be metal. And this obviously should be as well, the bobbin case. And again, if you're not familiar with these bobbin cases, you're going to see that you've got a tiny little screw right there on the bottom. I'll kind of hold it like this on the bottom. And then you have a larger screw on top. The bottom screw is your set screw to hold that band in place. It's going to be a pressure band that basically presses down or compresses that thread as it's racing through the bobbin case. And the more pressure down, the more that upper stitch on your material is going to be defined. The looser this band is, the less defined that top stitch is going to be. Again, a bobbin case like this defines the top stitch. That upper tension, this right here, is going to define that lock stitch. It's a tug of war. This part of the machine is going to be pulling up. This part of the machine right here is going to be pulling down. If that's helpful, and I know some of you have heard that explanation before, but if you think that's generally helpful to understand the concept of that, because I've experienced some very experienced sewers, including some seamstresses, that when I explained that concept, they looked at me like I was talking Yiddish. But once they understood the concept, they were able to manage their tension issues with that machine when they would transition from different layers of material and different materials much, much easier than they were when they didn't understand the concept. So if that's a helpful thing to understand, and if I did a decent job of explaining it, go ahead and type something in the chat to indicate that, would you please? And in the meantime, we're going to set this to the side, because we do not want to have, with an unknown commodity, a new machine arriving at the workshop, we don't want to have a bobbin case in there. We do not want to have a needle in there, because we eliminate the possibility of causing damage to the machine until we know how the machine is operating, how it's running. Okay? And like I demonstrated recently on Roz's premiere, this part of the machine right here is going to be a cast aluminum, so it's not going to give us a positive magnetic response. See that? And if we could find the faceplate, the faceplate that just fell off, you're going to see that the faceplate also is cast aluminum. So we're not going to get a positive response from the magnet on that either. This is not plastic, it's a type of metal. It's going to be an aluminum base. So we're not getting any magnetic response from that either. But the rest of the machine, good to go. Rest of the machine, and some of the machines that were in this older vintage space might also have some covers that are metal too. Some of the Type 21s have that one. This one does not. This is either aluminum or it's going to be plastic. It's hard to tell sometimes, although the aluminum might get a little bit colder than plastic. But we're definitely not getting a positive response from it. We do on the side. We're not going to get it from the balance wheel because the balance wheel is a type of resin. But we will from the mounting bolt that holds the balance wheel on. So it's just helpful to kind of understand your machine and know how it's set up. So another piece of that stuff right there. Yeah, I would suspect that that's probably remnants of a belt. I suspect. Might be wrong, might be right. You never know. Alright, so I'm going to put these back here. Our bobbin and bobbin case. So I've got them in one spot. I'll do the same thing with this incandescent bulb. And we'll look at the front of the machine first. Again, this is going to have a slightly different upper tension control than you'll see on some of the other newer version Swedish Beauties. Also, you're going to have this split design on the thread guide across the top that comes down to the upper tension control, instead of a solid band across there that usually you'll see, and it kind of mounts to the top of the machine. You've got one in the front, one in the back. Now, the overall layout on this machine is going to be very, very close to Roz's, although you're going to notice it doesn't have that little metal tab on here that's designed for start and stop points for buttonholes. This design does not have it because it's an older version of a Husqvarna. Same thing here as far as dropping feed dogs. It's going to be the same thing, rotated down to about the 6 o'clock position. Your feed dogs will be down, rotated back counterclockwise to the 12 o'clock position, and your feed dogs will be back fully up for regular sewing. And again, the only reason it's important to know that, if you're doing free motion quilting or free hand embroidery, you're going to want to drop those feed dogs and then bring them back up when you're doing regular sewing. This right here serves as our stitch width. Again, anywhere from 0 to 4. And you notice on some of the Swedish Beauties, they have the 0 on the right, and the 4 goes to the right, to the left, excuse me. I'm looking into the camera, sorry about that. You'll have the 4 on the right, the 0 on the left. On others, you'll have the 0 on the right and the 4 on the left. So, you know, there wasn't absolute uniformity across all the different tiers and levels of Swedish Beauties that were made over there in that great factory. Here we've got stitch length control. And on this particular one, unlike one of the machines I showed recently, I believe it was the Type 8E, that has a spring load in there that pulls it back down automatically. This one does not have a spring load. You're going to slide it up, it's going to stay wherever you leave it. It's not going to automatically get pulled back down. And obviously on this model, if you go all the way up, you're going to be in reverse. And then you can come back down into this range to set your stitch length, depending on how long of a stitch you want. Again, on the Swedish Beauties like this, you're going to have anywhere from about 5 stitches per inch all the way down here, 5 stitches per inch approximately. And if you come all the way up into the satin range near that 0, again, you can't go all the way to the 0. You're not going to get any material feed, and you're going to get a mess down here at the feed dog area. If you move it all the way up in that range, you're going to be in the satin range, probably around 25 to 30 stitches per inch. So, again, Husqvarnas have a little bit more stitch length reach than, say, the average Singer machine. This control right here is going to be a couple of things. It's going to be needle position, and you can see right now it's responding as it should. We change that needle position. But again, right now we're set on 0. If we move this stitch width from 0 over into the range somewhere between 2 to 4, let's say go up to about 2.5, somewhere around there. Now we're going to see that needle position reduced. See how it's barely moving now? We go all the way to 4, we get no needle position response at all. As it should be, because again, when you set it on 4, you're going to be telling that machine that you want maximum needle swing to execute that zigzag or decorative stitch. And if at the same time you're giving it a mixed message of, well, yeah, I want you to be able to swing, but I want you to be left needle position, that doesn't work. It's got to do one or the other. So when you go over into this range on stitch width, you're going to notice straight away that all of a sudden that needle position feature doesn't work anymore. But as you move it, subtly towards that 0, you're going to notice you might get a little bit of movement. Not quite yet, maybe just a little hint of movement. But if you really want to see the movement, take it all the way back to 0, and then you're going to notice some real defined movement from that needle position adjustment. This slider right here, this little silver slider thing, is going to allow you to access those cam features. And again, when it comes to the Swedish Beauties, even one like this that is a little bit older than Roz's, you're going to notice that you have to be in position 5 in order to get that zigzag feature, because every one of those cams that this machine takes in position 5, where it is right now, position 5 is always going to be your zigzag. And then as you move it through the different phases, position 4 is going to give you a decorative stitch. Position 3 give a decorative stitch. Position 2 will give you a decorative stitch. And then finally position 1 is going to give you another decorative stitch. But as soon as you move it over here, position 5, all you're going to get is a zigzag. That is, you're going to get a zigzag assuming that you've got the stitch width somewhere between 1 and 4. If you set this on position 5, where am I? You set this on position 5 and you have this stitch width on 0, you're not going to get anything other than a straight stitch. Doesn't matter where you set this control, this slider, if this is set on 0, because you're always going to get a straight stitch when you set it on 0. Does that make sense? Yeah, I think so. And again, in the last premiere, I believe it was Sunny who asked about this hole right here, she said, and it was a very intelligent question, by the way. I thought it was very, very cool that she asked it and noticed it too, but she's a very good student. She said, is that for a knee controller? Can you slide a knee controller in there? And she didn't say this, but I'll say it, like you can on some of the Elna machines. A number of the Elna machines and a couple of the Necky machines will have a little opening like this where you can slide a knee controller in there. And you can go both ways with some of those machines. You can have a knee controller or you can go to a foot controller. You can have both. This is simply a mounting point for that extension bed. When you slide that extension bed in place in that little spring thing I showed you on Roz's extension bed, you kind of pull that out and then you release it and it locks a pin in there to hold that extension bed in place. That's why that's there. And we'll just kind of look across the top of the machine. A little bit of a damage mark there, which again, that's kind of a beauty mark on machines. It shows that it's been used and that it hasn't been sitting in a closet somewhere. Also, you can see a little bit of a fading here of the paint. The paint right here that's kind of worn away from the other patina almost goes back to that original color, that mint style underneath there. So it's kind of like they did a base coat of the mint color and then they said, oh yeah, but all the other ones are that color. Let's make these extra special and unique. So then they painted over that base coat, which is like the machine like Roz has, and like a lot of the machines you've seen on this channel, and they put this other green on top of it. So who knows why they did that? Because I think this is a spectacular color. But at the same time, that's a spectacular color too. Remember you talking about road leg from driving South Bend and everything? Yes, I did just sneak a yawn in there. Well, you also have to yawn sometimes when you're using a lot of oxygen to talk as well, or breathe or whatever. So on this side, it's going to look a little bit different, right? You're used to seeing the Swedish Beauty with the little thing that you'll pull out on the bobbin winder, and that'll engage the slow gear. On here, you've got a tab that sticks out, and there should be a metal circular piece that will slide over this, and then you kind of see how it's shaped with a flat edge up here and kind of a rounded edge here. You're going to have that little plastic wheel. It's going to look a lot like that, real similar to that. And it's going to slide over that. You're going to slide it past the housing and then lock it in place. And what that'll do is it will allow you to sew at regular speed. When this is fully extended, which it isn't right now, so that might give us a clue that there's some issue inside or damage, because this should be extended out right now, and it's not. But when this is fully extended out, you're going to be able to then access that slow gear. So fully in and locked in place with something similar to this, it's going to be regular sewing mode. When this is fully extended out, it's going to be slow sewing mode. And slow sewing mode, again, for somebody that's really new to Swedish Beauties or this channel, that is when, you know what, let me ask it like a question so you students can type it into the chat. What does the slow gear do to the Swedish Beauty in relation to speed and in relation to motor revolutions, for lack of a better description? give you a few seconds and you can demonstrate your knowledge as I yawn a little bit more. And also it's going to be a little bit hard to see, but I'll turn the balance wheel a little bit. And you'll see there's a little fin sticking out here. See that little fin right there that sticks out? When you slide a bobbin over this, it depresses that fin, which through a spring release disengages the clutch from the machine, so that you don't have to look up here for some sort of a clutch release, because there isn't one. You just slide a bobbin over that depresses that little fin, and then if it's functioning correctly, it's going to disengage that clutch, which means when you slide a bobbin on, you're going to be able to wind a bobbin and that needle will not be moving. That's what that's all about. Okay, so you've had enough time with this up here, I think. And I'm not looking at the chat, so I'm going to tell you what the answer was. And if you got it right, give yourself a pat on the back, because that shows that you've been paying attention in the other classes. So when you slide the equivalent to something that looks kind of like that, which I don't see yet, but it might be in that plastic bag of stuff. You slide that in, you lock this in place. You're going to be sewing, regular. When you take that out, this should pop out, and then you're going to have the slow gear engaged. And depending on the design setup in here, when you allow this to pop out, it might lock that bobbin assembly between the assembly and the output drive on the motor in the rear. And by that I mean, if you have this popped out, it may not allow that balance wheel to turn. It'll lock it in place. And what you have to do then, if yours is set up like that, you have to slide a bobbin on while this is in the out position, and then you'll be able to use that slow gear. If you don't put a bobbin on and yours is set up where that mechanism locks, all you're going to be doing is wearing that short belt down that goes between the bobbin assembly and the motor, because this is going to be locked, and it's just going to be spinning and just eating that belt up. So check that carefully. You can usually do it by hand turning this before you engage that motor, so you don't potentially damage your belt between the bobbin assembly and the motor. Does that make sense? Type in the chat if that makes sense, because I want to set you guys up for success, and it's important that you understand that concept with some of these older style Swedish beauties, that you might have to make that adaptation to make that slow gear work properly. Okay? And you'll notice right in here, again, I talk about the motors being like a vacuum cleaner. Look at all that junk. Not as bad as some of the ones I've seen, but still you can see the tip of the iceberg and all the yucky stuff that motor has been sucking in, depending on the environment that it's been in. And if it looks like this on the outside, it's even worse inside of the motor. I can tell you that straight away. Now, you remember how Roz's was pushed all the way into the body of the machine, kind of jammed against there? And I talked about the fact that it wasn't set up to wind a bobbin like that, because it wouldn't operate correctly. Here we're at about the right distance from the body of the machine, which is going to be about 3 or 4 millimeters. But this little finger thing, when you're winding a bobbin on these machines, needs to be rotated down. It shouldn't be in the up position like that. And I may not be able to turn it. Let me see if I can grab a little screwdriver real quick and turn it to show you how the alignment should be, so you can have success in winding a bobbin. Oh, that's going to be way too big. Maybe too big. Let's see. So this is our little set screw right here on top. I'm just going to loosen that. Try to loosen it. Could you get an impression of how tight that sucker was? It kind of just popped finally and released a little bit. I'm actually going to grab even a smaller one. Hang on just a second. And I grabbed a smaller one because I noticed that the other one was kind of rubbing on the edges a little bit. So I'm just kind of loosening that a little bit more. And then we should be able to rotate this forward then. And that is the proper angle right there when you're winding a bobbin on these. That finger should be pointing forward, right about in that range right there. And when you come off the top again, you're going to kind of come down. And you're going to come underneath that little finger around here and then head towards the bobbin right there. but you have to kind of bring the thread, underneath that finger, over the top of this tensioner, and then back to the bobbin. That's the correct way to do it. So I'm going to go ahead and tighten this up again. I'm out a little bit further than I should be right now. We're probably about 5 millimeters, so I'm just going to wiggle it back in a little bit. Again, it should be about from the body, I'm just going to touch this real gently, from the body of the machine to the tensioner should be about 3 to 4 millimeters. So I'm going to tighten that back down again. And that way this is locked in position again, it's not going to move. So if you've ever had a Swedish Beauty and that sucker just does, I mean, it doesn't distribute the thread evenly on that bobbin when you're winding, you got to jimmy it, all that kind of stuff. Check the orientation of your little finger on here and check the distance from the body of the machine to this thread tensioner. Now I'm not going to show you the data plate yet. Because I create a little bit more suspense. Again, if you want to guess model at this point, I think that would be totally awesome, totally cool. Well, look at my hunch, folks. Remember me talking about that belt that was degrading? Look what color it is. So if you allow a belt to dry rot and to get to a point of degrading like this one, what it does is it splinters little pieces of that rubber and plastic, more of a rubber than a plastic, but it distributes that stuff all throughout the machine. So that's going to add a lot of work to this project as I make sure that little pieces like that don't get into all the moving parts that are essential to this machine, like this timing belt. This timing belt, I'll have to kind of check that and see if that can be saved. The timing belt's looking kind of rough. There's our cam A that's in the machine. So all of our mystery is solved now as far as all of that salmon orange colored stuff, like this. All part of the belt that has degraded and critically needs to be replaced so it doesn't contaminate any more of the machine with little fragments of this stuff that will create a lot of problems, especially if it gets into this arm region right here, where you've got smaller components that need to have freedom of movement and you'll get in there and jam it, or if somehow it gets into the motor compartment, that would be really bad. That would be really bad. There I am to my little goat thing again. Well, you saw it. There you go. So if no one guessed Type 21, then that's what this model is. I was trying to avoid that and I got all distracted. I was playing with this little button like a little 9-year-old. On and off, on and off, on and off. And I ended up showing it to you a little bit earlier than I planned to, but that's okay. So this is a Husqvarna Type 21. You can see the rating on the machine is for U.S. Electrical current, 110 to 120. Where if this were made for the European market, it would be 220 to 240 probably, somewhere in that range. You can see that the motor rating is 1.5 amps. That's what that 1,5 means. And you can see the needle that they're recommending is a 15 by 1, excuse me, 15 by 1. Which again, 15 by 1s are not all created equal, so you have to be careful if you base your needle selection on that schematic. What I'll tell you on these Swedish Beauties is that they love Schmetz sewing machines, the universal style ones that you can pick up at Joann Fabrics. You can pick them up at a lot of retailers. So if you go with a Schmetz universal, anywhere from a size to, size like 70 up to about 110, you're going to be golden as far as that needle being appropriate and well suited for this machine. And you can just see on the inside of here, there's going to be a lot of deep cleaning opportunities. A lot of varnishing, a lot of dirt, a lot of buildup, a lot of junk. Nasty, nasty belt. So, Type 21s are a model that I like a lot. They do a real good job. Especially, once it goes through my process. Again, if you're new to this channel, 126-step process that I take all Swedish Beauties through, that I'm either preparing for a customer or that I'm servicing like this machine for David from Texas. So before this thing gets my stamp of approval and gets premiered on a live premiere where it'll be run through the paces of all kinds of material, all kinds of thicknesses, including thinner materials too. And I recently had a lady that got a little bit borderline nasty with me on Facebook and was remarking about, I want to say it was about Roz's machine, and the fact that I had shown it sewing off primarily heavy stuff. Did a lot of heavy sew-offs with that machine. And she basically chastised me a little bit about not sewing lightweight. Well, I do, but it also is based on the customer needs. If I know that that customer has already told me that they're going to be sewing heavy grade, type leather or canvas or vinyl or whatever it is, what's the point in demonstrating the competency of that machine for that customer by sewing a bunch of chiffon and satin and silk and stuff like that? It's not going to be relevant to my customer. And the premiere is for everybody. Everybody's invited to the premiere, but that machine is prepared and showcased so that it's relevant to that customer. And it's kind of what I told the lady is, hey, if you want to go from being a critic to being a customer, you'll see that my walk is the same as my talk. And you tell me that you're going to be sewing a lot of lightweight material when I premiere your machine, I'm going to be sewing a lot of lightweight material to make it relevant to you as the owner. Does that make sense? Was I fair about that, or was I equally nasty? I think I was fair, but if you think I wasn't, then you can certainly type that in the chat. I'm always open to feedback. But I'm going to tell it to you straight. That's just the way I am. Kind of like telling it to you straight that this is just an ugly as sin sticker on the back of here that is from Phoenix, Arizona. And if you want to call these folks up and tell them they got an ugly sticker, and even though they had enough common sense to put it on the back motor cover panel, it's still an ugly sticker. Not as ugly as some of them, but thankfully, because of the thoughtfulness of Paula Noel sending me that bottle of that stuff that helps take these off, I'll be able to get this off a lot easier than I could otherwise. So y'all in Phoenix, Arizona, you're going to be history real soon. Yes, you are. All right. And we kind of look at the rest of this. The little rubber boot here that kind of holds that wire from being stressed is obviously gone. So I'll see if I can come up with something. Take all this off and then see if I can create a little bit of a rubber boot so that as this cord is being pulled, it's not being pulled against those tiny little those tiny little copper screws that are holding all the electrical contacts together, including this power cord. And you just see that this machine is, David was wise to send it to the workshop because he knows that I'm going to go through this thing like a fine-tooth comb and try to get all this dirt cleaned up as well. Again, something that would never, ever happen if you take it to a general sewing center. They're not going to have time to give your machine a spa day. They're going to do the basics in 30 to 45 minutes and give you a bill for about $100 to $125 probably. And that sticker will still be there. This dirt will still be there. The dirt on the other side will still be there. They wouldn't have done a thing with this because they're going to assume that you already have a bobbin set up in the machine, so they're not going to be adjusting this to set you up for success. They're not going to resolve the issues with your faceplate unless it drops off and ends up on the floor, and then they're like, okay, we got to do something. So I'm just telling it to you straight and honest, folks. That's the difference of why people from all around the country and around the world, for that matter, will send their machines to the workshop because they're going to get that level of treatment. So here we got a slightly different setup. Remember I was showing you on Roz's where she has that upgraded version of the quick release. We do not have that benefit on this Type 20. Excuse me. We do not have that benefit on this Type 21. All we have here is we have a little disc that we can spin to either increase or decrease presser foot pressure. There is no quick release. We don't have the option of releasing it and trying to squeak more pressure out of there. Although because we don't have a stop point on top either, preventing that spring and that presser foot bar from moving, we can still sneak out a hyperextension out of this anyway. See that? We can gain probably about 5 millimeters. So David is still able to even though it doesn't have a quick release, he's still able to squeak a little bit more clearance out of there. And this is in the up position right now, so that's max as it's designed, like that. But we can go beyond that by just pushing this up. We got something real thick that we want to try to fit through there. Yeah, it's a little sticky. Yeah, that's functioning correctly. So what I just did, I wanted to test to make sure that that spring was doing what it was supposed to be doing, is I rotated this disc all the way down, which means I've got little or no presser foot pressure right now. So if you were sewing some of that chiffon or satin or silk or some of that real delicate, lengthy, dainty stuff, you probably wouldn't want to be this light on presser foot pressure. Again, just for those of you that are real new to this, when you're sewing super light material, you've got to adjust this presser foot pressure. It can't be, that disc can't be all the way up here, or you're going to basically destroy that lightweight material. You've got to reduce presser foot pressure for light materials. You've got to increase it when you want to sew heavier materials. And the other trick I gave to someone recently that sent a question in by messenger, I believe it was, or maybe they emailed me. They said, when you're sewing leather, you've got to have higher presser foot pressure, which means that presser foot attachment is pressing that material hard into those feed dogs that are going to mar that material potentially. How do you get around that? I said, well, you take a couple sheets of wax paper and you put it between that presser foot and those feed dogs over the top of that material, or under it for that matter. You can go with a sheet above and a sheet below. That material is still going to feed, give you nice even stitches, but that wax paper, whether it's a single layer or two, is going to protect that leather from getting marred and from having basically dents in it from those feed dogs. So you can apply that same little trick if you're sewing a lot of leather or other material that might get damaged when you're sewing it. So right now I'm rotating this disc forward again so I can increase that presser foot pressure again to a nice middle range. Right about to there. So now I've got enough presser foot pressure that I could sew leather or vinyl or some other heavy grade material. Or if I'm quilting with this machine, I could go through multiple layers of quilt batting. Now if you sew multiple layers of whatever and you're getting stubby stitches or you're getting uneven stitches, you need to increase this a little bit higher. On this machine, you're going to be rotating it to the front to give yourself heavier presser foot pressure, so that spring is compressed down and pushing harder against that that slider on the bar to give you higher pressure. And I pointed this out on Roz's as well. If you're ever looking for the serial number on the machine, you can find it right here. And again, my good friend Hans over in Norway has been able to get a hold of some original documents from the sewing machine factory in Sweden, the Husqvarna factory, and he's able to be a great resource in looking up numbers. So if you want to reach out to us by way of messenger through the Cow Country page and send a message, and you can even address it to Hans, he'll be able to be a resource. If you give him this serial number, he'll be able to give a resource in telling you more about that machine. And that really is the incredible blessing of having Hans. Number one, he's incredibly passionate, even though he's very new to vintage sewing machines. Only a couple of years has he been involved with vintage sewing machines. When I met him, he'd only been doing it for about a year. But he jumps into things fast and furious, and he was able to acquire these materials, and so now he's a great resource in helping us to date these machines a lot more specifically. Yeah. Thank you, Hans. So you can reach out to Hans if you want to have that as a resource. I'm still playing with my little loose bracket here that I'll tighten, and then we'll have that faceplate not falling off anymore, which will be a good thing. So So this is a Type 21. Again, an older machine than the one I just presented through the unboxing for Roz's machine. Not only because of the patina color, that's an immediate, hey, that's an older machine because of the patina color, which is true, but also because some of the design features as well that I pointed out, kind of like the bobbin winding assembly style and some of the other things, this and other things that I pointed out during the course of this unboxing. Okay, hopefully that's helpful. I don't know if I missed anything or not. I think we're good enough. I can put this up on the tripod and we can at least try. Well, no, I'm not, because of that belt condition. I'm going to make the environment of the machine worse if I fire this thing up and actually engage the foot controller, because of the condition of that salmon colored belt that we found all of these remnants of. We're just going to be shooting more of those through the body, the innards of the machine, and kind of like shrapnel. We're going to be sending shrapnel throughout the entire machine by operating it more, so we're not going to do that. We could simply test the light, but I took the light bulb out, so we're kind of stuck there too. Why don't we just leave it the way it is for right now, okay? So I appreciate you all being a part of this premiere for this unboxing for our friend David Stock. David Stock from the great state of Texas. David, I appreciate you sending this machine into me. We'll be in contact because, again, when the customer looks at the machine and we're kind of talking about the condition of it, their concerns, knowing that machine well, they'll highlight a number of the things that they're aware of, but inevitably when that machine gets into the workshop and goes underneath the microscope and goes through that surgical examination process that, again, has how many steps? Type it in the chat. How many steps do I take a machine like this through before I give it a stamp of approval to launch to that next phase of being premiered? Type it in the chat right now if you know. And while you're doing that, I'm going to get back up on the tripod because I can see my battery starting to drop a little bit. Okay, that's enough time for you because I'm only looking for 3 numbers. So if you typed in the chat, and it doesn't matter if you're the first one to type it or the second one or the third one or the fourth one or whatever, but if you typed in 126 steps, you get an A in the class and you are on my list for favorite student of the week. So matter of fact, in your honor, if you nailed it and you put down 126 steps is Scott's exclusive process for Sweetest Beauties, I'm even going to ring the bell for you to signify the fact that you nailed it. You nailed it. Plus that bell is being rung because this is the end of the class. So God bless you guys. And remember another saying that I've shared with you before, and I believe it's attributed to a real smart dude by the name of Aristotle. And Aristotle said, we are what we repeatedly do. Excellence, therefore, is not an act, it's a habit. So with excellence not being an act, in other words, you're kind of faking it like a lot of the people will do that are trying to sell vintage sewing machines simply because they want to turn a buck. Those are the fakers. Those are the ones that are pretending. Those are the ones that are not genuine. They're not the genuine article. They're just trying to flip a dollar and make a buck on a vintage sewing machine, which I think is a little bit shameful, but I get it. I understand. Times are tough, and they need to make money too. But make money somewhere else, would you please? Don't do it and then end up selling a machine to one of my friends that watches this channel, and they get disappointed, and maybe they reach out to me, maybe they don't. Maybe they just put that machine into a closet and they just think, well, I guess I got taken and I spent all my money on that machine. I don't have money to send that machine to Oconto, Wisconsin, where Scott can take it through that 126-step process. And they end up walking away from a Swedish Beauty disappointed. Worse yet, that Swedish Beauty goes into a closet instead of being enjoyed. So if you're one of those actors out there that you're faking it and you're being deceptive to people, stop. get a job somewhere else and don't contaminate the vintage pond by doing it that way. Do it right or don't do it at all, okay? Be committed to excellence. So again, to quote what Aristotle said, we are what we repeatedly do. Excellence, therefore, is not an act, it's a habit. And I can tell you that's my habit at the workshop. Y'all know that. We're all about excellence here. And we're also about, as well, as good as I'm doing it with that 126-step process, I'm committed to improving it more and more and more. That again goes back to that Kanai principle that I told you I learned as an executive when I was working with General Motors and I was working with PepsiCo many years ago. We were committed to constant and never-ending improvement. That is the Kanai principle. So Kanai really describes this workshop as well. As good as things are, I'm committed to making them better. So know that as you weigh the odds of, do I go with a local sewing center? Because Scott said, support my local businesses. And I'm saying it again. If you can support your local businesses, do it. But if you want to have that machine gone through at a level that will blow your mind, and that's the level of sewing that you're looking to do, you want that machine to be running better than when it left the factory in Sweden, then send it to the workshop. And find another way to support your local businesses, maybe by buying parts from them, maybe by supporting them in some other way. Because I do believe in supporting local businesses, without a doubt. So, blah, 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 blah. Scott, didn't you already ring the bell? Can't we go off for recess now? Or can't we go home? Yeah, go home. Go home. You already are home, you silly guys, gals. But, again, just kind of wrapping this up for about the 20th time. I just want to give a shout out to my friends at the History Museum. If any of you are watching this, thank you so much for another warm welcome. The warm welcome I got when I was down there back in December before Christmas inspired this campaign that we just completed, where we raised $11,100 in about 10 days. And when I just came back down again for the celebration, the same level of warmth. Gosh, I wish we were not in a pandemic. I wanted to give each one of those incredible people down there a hug. And I couldn't because of the conditions of this pandemic situation. So can't wait to get past this. Get this in our rearview mirror. Go back down and see those folks again. No masks, no sanitizer, and just walk up and, even with Brian, give that cool guy a big hug and say, I'm back down because we're doing another fundraiser. I'm back down because I wanted to, walk the museum. I didn't have a chance to walk all those galleries that Brian talked about when we visited down there to celebrate the closing of the fundraiser and the contest. I think he said 8 galleries, didn't he? Y'all type it in the chat if I got that right. And Brian said 8 galleries. Type it in the chat, because I would love to visit all those galleries. I just kind of breezed through them real quick as I was down there on my 2 visits. I'd love to see them more in depth. So, at any rate, I'm signing off. Finally, class is over. Take care, everybody. God bless you.